Hey listeners, it's Kara, your host. After 176 amazing episodes and hundreds of book recommendations, I wanted to make it a little bit easier for you to find your next great read. The Bookish Lights Roadmap is your guide to all 175 podcast episodes, sorted by genre so you can quickly find the stories that fit your reading mood. From picture books to adult novels and everything in between, it's the perfect way to explore past episodes and discover new favorites. You can find your copy of the Bookish Lights Roadmap at www.bookishlights.com/read/roadmap, or just click the link in the show notes. Hi, I'm Kara Infante, and this is Bookish Flights, a podcast where we tell our stories through our favorite books. Each episode features a bookish guest where we will talk about reading, life, and the seasons we're in, all through a thoughtfully paired book flight of recommendations for you. If you're looking for meaningful book recommendations and a space to slow down, you're in the right place. Welcome back to Bookish Flights. Today's conversation features Gigi Howard. Gigi is a librarian of 15 years and hosts the Drinks in the Library podcast, the only library where drinks aren't just allowed, they're required. Gigi believes that every book is someone's favorite and that books have life-changing qualities that deserve to be shared. On her show, she pairs beloved books with thoughtfully chosen drinks, creating conversations that feel both playful and deeply personal. Whether you're a lifelong library lover, someone who hasn't stepped inside one in a while, or someone who just wants a fresh way to think about reading, this episode is for you. Welcome to the show, Gigi.
Hi, Kara. I'm so pumped to be here. And I felt you and I were just talking that we could just probably talk for 47 hours and not have run out of things to say. So this is going to be so much fun.
Absolutely. We were like, we need to schedule a call on the side for all the other things we want to talk about. So
100%. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I feel like we are so much more than just what our bios say about us. So tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, we'll begin at the beginning. All right. As you said, I'm a librarian. I have been a librarian for 15 years. I'm a library manager.
Okay.
There's a lot of different roles you can have to work in a library, but I am the boss of a building.
Thank you for clarifying. I'm like, okay, so what does that exactly entail? So
yeah. And so yesterday I fixed a toilet. There's all kinds of things that go into my job that probably people don't think about. I don't read all day. That's the dream.
Yeah.
That's what we're working for, Kara. You and I are going to get there someday that we just read for a living, but not there yet. And I am a lifelong reader, which I'm guessing we are going to talk about.
Yeah.
And I am a wife, a wonderful husband I love so much, and I am the mom of a very fun and spicy 11-year-old girl.
Got to keep us on our toes.
Yeah, she does, and keeps me relevant and explains things. So I guess that's the basics of it all. I mean, I can go into more detail, but that's essentially, if you come down to it, that's what I do most of my life.
Yeah. I mean, you spend your most time there, right? So
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have been, as you mentioned, a librarian for over 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about what this job has taught you about readers. I just had episode 200 come this week, and I'm like, I haven't interviewed a librarian yet. So I was so excited that we had made this connection.
I'm your first librarian?
Yes. Out of hosting a bookish podcast for, 200 episodes. So I'm so honored to have you. But what has your career taught you about readers, and especially the ones that maybe say, I'm not a reader?
Yeah. So I think, part of the reason I started Drinks in the Library is because I love having these conversations about books. Obviously, they're so important to me. But getting to know other people through books they love. And I think another thing I guess I can say about the reason I started the podcast is every book is someone's favorite. Yeah. And it really breaks my heart a little bit sometimes when I've heard ex-patron talk about their love of a certain book and then to like go on Goodreads or somewhere in New York Times reviews and see someone trash it, you know?
Yeah.
And we have there's 5 rules of librarianship. I won't do them all, but 2 of them are for every book, its reader, and for every reader, his or her book.
Okay.
And, yeah, and that I think is just so true that these stories are so valuable to the people that love them and they shape who we are. And yeah, I think when I come down to like the heart of it, I could definitely go on about like my love of books that I've gotten through librarianship, but specifically just seeing how important they are. And then also a thing I like to talk about is that, every book has value. It also bothers me. Let's
Yeah.
just talk about things I don't like when people do this.
Yeah.
I've definitely had parents come in and be like, "Oh, my kid just likes graphic novels and I want them to read a real book."
Yeah.
I don't love that, Kara.
Yeah.
I think reading is valuable and we're all on our journeys. Like life is so magical in the ways that you don't know what's coming next. And so if a person is loving a book, that's their journey. And my husband often talks about like for example, specifically comic books. We have so many comic books in this house. It's from him growing up and
Yeah.
like, okay, when we might need to get rid of these, but
Yeah.
it's too much. But same thing as he grew up loving that, and he's a huge reader now. Like he's reading, he reads very long books, which I don't really. But you have to start somewhere. And if someone had come around and been like, "Oh, a comic book isn't a real book," or "You're
Yeah.
not reading on grade level," or anything that kind of diminishes the experience, it breaks another thing that
Yeah.
breaks my heart
It's
a
like
little
a
bit. Yeah.
story they start to tell themselves then, right? And you don't
Absolutely.
want to have that happen. I have actually heard graphic novels are a fantastic way for our children to read, especially if you're worried about the comprehension piece of it, because they're having a picture that's going along with what they're reading so they can confirm, oh, the words I'm reading make sense with the picture. And then that just is all part of helping their comprehension as well. So actually a
Yeah.
benefit.
Yeah, 100%. And also, like, shout out to graphic novel writers and illustrators and all of these amazing people that are creating stories for us to enjoy. I mean, they are brilliant, and I want to give them
Yeah.
all of the praise and attention they deserve too. So,
Absolutely. Well, for listeners who are maybe just discovering you today and drinks in the library, how did you come about the idea for your podcast?
oh, well, long as we're talking about like magical journeys we are all on, I think sometimes you don't know. Um, sometimes the universe is pointing you in a certain direction. You don't really know at the time what it is. So I had been a librarian, obviously, for a long time. I started thinking about drinks in the library or a concept probably like 2023.
Okay.
And so you just had your 200th episode. I next week am going to have my 100th episode.
Yay!
Yay! Yeah, so I've been doing it officially for 2 years, but the idea kind of came to me of that I wanted to talk to people about stories that they love.
Yeah.
As I was just saying, it's breaks my heart when I hear someone say, "Oh, I hated this book and here's why." And then I hear someone else say, "I love it so much." So I basically just give people a platform to talk about things that they love and stories that have impacted. And I always start off with, who were you when you read this book?
I love that.
Because, yeah, some people choose books that they read when they were children. Some people pick something that just they love that came out in the last year. And they just want to have someone like it's kind of like a book club, like you
Yeah.
just want to have someone to talk to. Um, I interview, as you do, a lot of writers, and like I really wish I could maybe I will someday, but I am a talker. Like I am that person that had to be separated from my friends. Shout out to Frau Horvath, my German teacher in high school. She like would see me coming from a mile away and like put me in the corner. Which is a little cruel, but she was probably right.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I've always just been, I love chatting with other people and learning about them and their stories. And then also, so I think it's really important that we shine lights on like different stories that are out there and different experiences. I don't know if you've covered like all the book banning challenges that have been going on
Yeah.
in the United States and around the world in the last 5, 6 years. I mean, it's always happened, but we've really seen it not ramp up recently. And the books that are being challenged are often from people that have a perspective that is not in the majority. You know, we see a lot of like people of colors and people of color stories, LGBTQ stories. And so I want to make sure it's important to talk about different experiences that
Yeah.
we all have as readers and why it's important to find yourself in a story. And yeah, so I probably could tell that a little bit more succinctly, but really when I get down to it, that's kind of like the heart of the podcast, of why I started. And then like I love making cocktails and having people over to, having people over to have a drink with me. It's fun.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think very similarly for our
Yeah.
shows, I've come up into this idea of just you can learn so much about one another through the books that you love.
Yeah.
And in the same vein of the benefits of reading, right? Like the empathy we can build, walking in someone else's shoes, learning from each other's experiences. Books are just such a great gateway to open up to a deeper conversation.
Yeah. Can I ask you why you started Bookish Flights? Where were you?
Yeah, so it's 2021, so we're just about 2 years apart in our start.
Right.
Um, I was actually coming off of my husband was deployed. I had a 3-month old, a 2-year old, and a 5-year old, and he
Oh,
was gone for 7 months, and it was 2020. So like no one
yeah.
could get to me.
Yeah.
And I, out of probably my brain trying to figure out a way to stay sane, and that was like, I want to dream about something that I can do when he gets home.
Hmm.
And so I just started this idea of dreaming about a podcast. And I'm actually a physical therapist by trade. And I was like, oh,
Okay.
yeah, I could do a show on physical therapy. But I was like, after like 15 episodes, I probably would get kind of bored with what I was talking about. Like, there's just not
Hmm.
topics you could go on and on about. So I'm like, what else do people call me for? And I was like, they call me for books because I, like you, have been a lifelong reader, voraciously reading. Like, it is my one habit that has followed me through life. And so I was like, what if I do a show that involves books? And as bookish people, we could fire hose people with book recommendations. So
Yeah.
I chose, like, what if we did like a wine flight of books where we just bring 3 book recommendations, keep us in control and check a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and really at the time, I wanted it because I was always saying, I'm not a fantasy reader. I don't read sci-fi. And I'm like, but how can you say you don't read something if you don't try it? And
Yeah.
so I was like, well, what if we start with genre-based book flights where we could, if you want to try fantasy, here's 3 books from someone who is a voracious fantasy reader. And it gives you a place to start because, as you know, there are so many books out in the world that it's hard to sometimes navigate where to start. So
Yeah.
that was the start of it. And it has morphed into being so much more than that at this point.
Yeah. Are you able to read like what you want to read still, or are you reading for the podcast a lot?
So I don't read all of the book flight books. I usually try to go back and read one sometimes after we air, but I
Yeah.
always, if an author sends me a book for the interview, I will always read that. So right
Okay.
now I feel like I haven't had as much to read, and so I've been picking books that I wanted to read. So I think it ebbs
Good.
and flows with my seasons too.
Good. Yeah, that's my struggle. And I was listening to prep for the episode you and I are doing for Drinks in the Library. I was
Yeah.
listening to a reads with Jenna Bush Hager, and she was saying the same. She was like, I used to love to read and I miss my old reading patterns because now, because I have this thing, I am always reading things that I would
Yeah.
not normally pick up. So it's a gift and a curse. I don't want to say curse, but
Yeah,
anyway,
because it just
good
expands our
experience.
reading horizons, right? Which was the
Hmm.
other thing. I mean, really at the base of it was like, I want to try fantasy. I want to expand into a different genre I don't normally pick up. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, it really did help in a way. Because, like you said, we're exposed to so many that I would have never come across my radar, probably. which is great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it. Love
Yeah. Well, question for you about your show. Has there ever
it.
been a drink pairing that has surprised you or just maybe clicked away with a book that you didn't expect?
I interviewed Naomi Shu Elegant. I always want to say her name so fancy, but she wrote the book Ginkgo Season. It came out last year. It was her
Okay.
debut novel, and this is the first time and the only time I think I've done this so far. And I'll probably do more because podcast is like kind of blowing up. But anyway, I reached out to her because I loved Ginkgo Season
Yeah.
so much. And she is the coolest person in the entire world. And if you haven't read Ginkgo Season, it's just like kind of like a coming of age story about this young woman, and it goes back and forth between Philadelphia and Beijing, which,
Okay.
like you, I don't know if you've lived internationally. I lived briefly in
Yeah.
Beijing. So I was, of course, reading Ginkgo Season. I was like, oh my gosh, they were speaking Mandarin. It was just taking me back. But so she picked lychee
Lychee.
lychee
Yeah.
martini. And she shared with me because that comes up in her book. They
Okay.
drink lychee martinis. And she told me she put that in there because that was her mother's favorite
Oh,
drink. And
love
so
that.
so the drink that I share on the podcast is literally Naomi's mom's
Oh,
recipe.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, that was just so special. And like I was saying earlier, it's like you just don't know where you're going on this journey. Like I
Yeah.
didn't know that I was gonna get to have this cool connection with the author's mom. But anyway, there's so many others that were great, but that one was really fun.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to highlight the depth of books too. And back to your point of, I always say I don't book bash on this show because that book that I don't is maybe not for me, is for someone
Mhm.
else. And that's going to be their favorite book. And so I don't book bash here because I know that the authors pour their heart and their soul into these novels
Yes.
and the depth to which they write. It just maybe wasn't the right fit for me or the right time in my life to pick it up. And so
Yes.
I realized that it's so subjective, right? So we just
100%.
don't do that around here. Not on my show.
No, I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, thank you for I don't know if I've ever heard that book bash, but I love that and I'm going to use it now too because there's lots of things that I don't love and
Yeah.
like that's fine. Like and I'm entitled to not enjoy every single thing that I read, but that it's so boring. Like there's so many things to talk about that you love. Like it's so boring to talk about things you hate in my opinion. So,
Yeah. I am interested because I feel probably as a librarian more so than me, you have gotten approached so much about ideas for books, when you were working as a librarian and what do you read and how do you help someone maybe navigate that you just met for, helping them find a book for them?
yeah. I will tell you it's hard. I will tell you that's like a scary thing. Like we talk about it a lot because I feel like the pressure is on. And the question that I ask at the end of my podcast when we're finished talking about the book is who would you recommend this for? Because I think a lot of times books are about vibes.
Yeah.
What was I saying? I had did a post recently about the women with Chris and Hannah, right? Because it was like the most popular book that came out last year. And I think a lot of times people will be like, "Oh, you want to you loved the women. Okay, let's go find other books about Vietnam." And that's not the heart of what the women is about. It's
Yeah.
about women's resilience. It's about friendship. It's a little bit of a love story. So really it's about kind of finding out what someone loved in the story
Yeah.
specifically. And that is hard to figure out. So a lot of times we'll start with like, what's the last thing you read that you really loved?
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's a good question to kind of get someone's mind turning a little bit. And then you go from there. And like I said, sometimes I find it really quickly. Sometimes I'm literally going through the stacks and I'm like, oh, this was really good. And I'm like, okay, well, this is a ghost story. And do you like to read things around certain times of year? Those kinds of questions, because you're really trying to get to the heart of who someone is.
Yeah.
Librarians are many things. Like I said yesterday, I fixed a toilet. Um, and I feel like we're a little bit of a therapist sometimes. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe that's a whole nother podcast is like crazy things people have told me.
It's like sitting down in the hairstylist chair, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. You would be very surprised some of the stories I've listened to. So anyhow,
But libraries are a safe place. So I could
yeah,
totally see that. Like,
yeah,
especially for us book people, you walk in and it's like instant calm, right? Like that
hmm
I remember as a kid walking in and thinking like the whole world is my oyster, right? Like there's
hmm
so many options, there's so many ways. And I think that that is a vibe, right? That is a feeling and libraries have that. And so I could see where
yeah,
people feel comfortable to kind of open up.
yeah. And I want to say like that is one of the things like about librarianship specifically that we care very much about people's privacy.
Yeah.
Um, So I joke that I would make a podcast. I actually never would. I
Yeah.
mean, I might tell you like privately, like, oh my gosh, here's the crazy thing, but I would never like put
Yeah.
anybody on blast. Because like you said, I really, I hold the tenets of my job very close to my heart. And, yeah, it's a safe space. And I love that. I love that you feel that way. And I hope other people feel that way as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For listeners that maybe haven't been to the library in a while, what are they missing? Like, what has changed? What's the future of libraries? What's coming? What makes you excited? I mean, there's so many questions you could go with that. But every time I go to the library, I learn like another program they have going on. I'm like, that's so cool.
hmm
I just think there's so much available.
Yeah. I wish I could answer the question, what's the future of libraries? I would be very rich if I
Yeah.
could answer that question. But I mean, I think in generally, I think people we're still there. We still have, all of the hottest James Patterson novels, and I think sometimes people think like there's like a stagnation around librarianship, that the library that you had as a kid is the same one that's around. There's a lot of very intelligent, thoughtful people doing the work of growing libraries, thinking about our patrons. I mean, we're very focused on KPIs, key performance indicators. We do lots of surveys about what our communities are interested in.
Yeah.
I don't just like make a program because I like something. I am thoughtfully
Yeah.
thinking about my community, and what they're interested in. Do I have a lot of seniors coming in? Do we have more families with young children? And gear our programs towards that. And we have 3D printers now, so you can come in and like if you haven't used one before, and someone will kind of show you the ropes of that. And yeah, we kind of do everything these days, to be honest, like kind of a jack of all trades between being a community space. And that is
Yeah.
something that has changed quite a bit, probably between the libraries that I grew up with in the 90s and now. Is that, I mean, we were a community space then, but even now, so even more so now with, yeah, everybody has the internet. And I think people thought, oh, well, the internet's here. Now AI is another scary thing for everybody coming up, but people want community. And
Yeah.
that is not going to change. And it is so important to have third spaces for people to be able to come together. And I see that all the time. And and we're still busy. I just want to put that plug in because sometimes people who don't come in, libraries are cyclical in the ways that when you come in when you're a child, right? Like you
Yeah.
come in with your parents and you go to story time. And then you grow up and you might come and do your homework there. And then you go to college, right? Or whatever, wherever you are in your journey, you become a young adult. Maybe you start a family of your own. And guess what? Then
Yeah.
this process starts all over. So I do sometimes think people are like, oh, well, I only went when I was a child and I haven't gone back. I'm like, okay, well, there's still children that are coming in and doing and attending story time, and we're still doing all of these things. It has not stopped. So we're still very busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
love that. It's so fantastic. I have a funny story really quick about libraries. So we moved
yes.
to San Diego, obviously.
Mhm.
And there's a library a couple blocks from the house. Like we can walk to it, which is great. I've never lived within walking distance of a library. So for me, this is like,
Yeah.
woohoo, we can walk.
Yeah.
So we joined the library and then there's so many libraries. Obviously, it's a huge county here.
Yes.
And we go to this other library that's over, about 3 miles away. We drove over there and So I had turned in all the books we had gotten at the library we walked to, and I turned them in on the outside, like the drop box outside, and we go in and we get new books at this library and we go to check out, and they're like, oh, we're a different library system. So there's a
Huh.
county system here and there's a
Oh.
public library system here. And then even some of the towns in San Diego County have like their own library system. And at the time, like we had just moved here, my kids were much younger. I was very foggy in the brain. So I get a new library card and I check out these books with my kids. And then I drive home and I'm like, you put all those books for the county library in the public library system.
Mhm.
So I called them back and I was like, hi, I was just there like an hour ago and I didn't realize there was two library systems here. Like, can I come back and pick up all those books that I put in the Dropbox? So I had to drive back. Thankfully, my in-laws were in town at the time. So they were able to like keep the kids. I was able to run back and get the books, but I was like, oh, so it is very like, because my kids, I mean, I'm always wondering like, when are we going to hit the limit of how many books we can check out? And I believe it's 30. I don't know about your library system, but we have
Oh, okay.
stacked.
We're 75.
Oh my goodness. I couldn't, with three kids and 75 books, I would be like, we're drowning in books. But I'm always like, make sure you have the county library books here and the public library books here. And like, just we
Yeah.
have to separate them out so we don't drop them in
Yeah.
the wrong drop box.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure for that kind of system, if it's tough, if they have that many different library systems, I guarantee you that happens all the time. I'm just envisioning at the back of in our workroom, we have like four different boxes and it's all the different counties around or the school systems. We get a lot
Yeah.
of like the
Oh,
public schools books.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it happened
Yeah.
yesterday. I'm thinking, yeah. So, I'm
Okay.
sure
Well,
they were
glad to
like,
know I'm not
no
alone.
worries, we got you.
I know. And I'm like, I imagine there's probably some way they like drop books after each other. I don't know. But I had realized it within like the hour. Like I said, I had done it. So I was like, let me just call
Yeah.
them back and see if I can grab the books. So,
Yeah. Good.
but
Good.
it was funny. So, well, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk
Okay.
about who you are as a reader. What genres do
Oh,
you enjoy?
oh, gosh. Well, like I was just saying, I read a lot for the podcast. I write reviews for Booklist, which is a librarian trade magazine. So
Okay.
I read a book a month for them, and I have my book club that I host. Honestly, starting the podcast, if we start talking about the impetus for that, I also have a neighborhood book club that I host. So I read for that. Okay, books that I love. I love Lauren Groff. I've just
Yes.
read Brawler, which just came out.
It
I
keeps
read a
popping across my feed. So I'm like, oh, I got to add that to my
it's
list.
it's heavy. It's
Okay.
heavy. It's short stories, but it's like which one of these is going to break my heart open up more. So anyway, um and I definitely read a lot by female authors. I occasionally will read fantasy. I'm not a sci-fi reader. I I joke sometimes that I read The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath at like 21, and then I've just always been searching for like books to make me cry on that level since then.
To pull my heartstrings just enough.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm thinking like books that I have really enjoyed. I love what was it? The 13th Tale,
Oh,
Sittenfeld. Have you
yes.
read that?
So good.
So
Yes, love
good.
that book.
Have you read Once Upon a River?
No.
Another book? Okay.
Okay. All
You've got
right.
to. So I always say 13th Tale you read in the fall
Okay.
and Once Upon a River you read in the spring.
Oh,
So
so
they're
perfect timing.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's perfect time to read that. So yeah, I think I love, and we'll go into with the three books I picked for the flight. I love like a little bit of a ghost story too.
Okay.
Like if there's like a ghost around, I'm a little woo woo. Like I've just got a little woo woo tendencies, and so any kind of like, oh, there's something going on here that,
Taps into that.
yeah. So anything like that, but. Yeah, and the one of the books we're going to talk about with the ghost, it was my favorite book from last year. So,
Okay. How in your busyness do you find time to read?
audiobooks.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah, I do a lot of audiobooks, obviously Libby, and yeah, you just kind of gotta cut in a little bit here, a little bit there. I truly wish that I could just read for like someone would pay me to read because I really feel like I could benefit the world with the thoughts that came out of. So anyone, if there's like a mysterious billionaire that's
Yeah.
like out there and you just want to have like a side project where someone like takes art and then like transforms it into, I don't know, a conversation, that would be the dream. But yeah, I audiobooks and just getting it in where I can. Read a few chapters at night before I go to bed. In the morning when I'm brushing my teeth, I'll turn the audiobook on, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know. How many books have you read this year so far?
That's a great question. I would have to go count.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
I usually
yeah,
do a roundup monthly, and I feel like I read 9 or 10 in January, but I have not done
yeah.
February yet. And we're recording in the last
Okay.
day of February. But you know how I'm like literally like, will I be able to finish that audiobook today? Maybe I'll be able to. Like
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
about the number, but I have like 3 audiobooks and I paused for our
Uh-huh.
interview to like
Uh-huh.
plop the nightingale in. So I was like
Mm-hmm.
well versed and ready to talk about it again.
Right.
And so yeah, so I had like I have 3 audiobooks like half going on right now. So I'm like, maybe I can finish one of those today, clean the house, find a bucket of
Right.
laundry.
Right. Yeah, I think we're like pulling back the curtains a little bit on people of like probably what they imagine us doing is just like sitting like romantically reading
Yeah.
by a window, and really we're like cleaning the floor, listening to something, or like reading something while I'm doing something else anyway.
I know. I had an author, her name is Angela Bell, and it just resonated with me so much. She's like, I could have been a scullery maid if I had Audible. And I was like, it is so true. Like, because you're willing
She's
to clean
right.
anything if you have an
Yeah.
audiobook.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I'll go out and blow leaves. I'll go trim the bushes. And my husband's like, "Do you mind?" I'm like, "I got it. I'm finishing this.
Yeah.
I've got to find out what they say next." So, yeah.
Yeah. And because he's a reader, he understands that, right? So it's
He does.
perfect.
He definitely does. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have brought 3 books with you today in the form of a book flight. Can you tell us how
Okay.
you chose these books?
Okay. I as with anything, I had a moment of panic of that I wasn't going to do this very well. But then I my favorite book that I read last year was Nita de Monte Laughs Last. And forgive me, I'm going to try to be in the moment, but like I do have like a page of notes on my
I
phone.
love it.
So
Yeah. Perfect.
and so that was my favorite book that I read last year. And if you're not familiar, Xochitl Gonzalez is an American author. She's a little bit older than me. I think she's like she's a Gen Xer, so I think she's
Okay.
like in her late 40s. But so she has 3 books that she's written so far, and which is, uh, I can't wait to see what she does next. These 3 books have been amazing, so I've picked the 3 books that she has written,
Love
mainly because I wanted to talk about Anita De Monte. But
it.
I love the other 2 as well. So the Anita De Monte is her second book. Her first book that she wrote was Olga Dies Dreaming. And we read that in my book club that I referenced
Okay.
earlier. And
Yeah.
actually, when I suggested to you that I wanted to do these 3, I wasn't even thinking about the fact that Olga Dies Dreaming was one of the first episodes that I did for my
How
podcast.
fun. Okay.
And I think we recorded it before I had released anything. So like you really have to give a love letter to my initial guest that came on when I was just like, "Hey, I'm going to make a podcast." And they're like, "Okay." And I'm like, "I want you to come on and talk about a book."
Yeah.
And so
Out
it
of
was my friend.
curiosity, who was it?
It was Stephanie
Okay.
Lau, who I run the neighborhood book club with.
Okay. So you had a relationship with her.
Yes. So we had, and of course, we talk about books all the time. And she's like brilliant, amazing, all of these wonderful things and so thoughtful. So, but yeah, I didn't even think about the fact that that was like one of our very first episodes was Olga Dice Dreaming.
I recruited
And
my friends too for the first few because I'm like, I just need to get comfortable interviewing. And I'd rather do it with you who like I can laugh and like make fun of myself if I mess it
yeah,
up. It needed to be a lower like stress level for it to
low
start.
stakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. My first episode, first of all, the audio is horrible, but it's one of my favorites. And it was my husband.
Okay. I love that. Very
Yeah, but
comfortable.
yeah, it was very comfortable. Bill is funnier and a better storyteller than I am, so he's really good. But yeah, the audio is horrible. But We had a
Okay.
good time.
I love it.
Um, yeah, so and then the third book, which is not out just yet, and I did look up, she does have a nonfiction book that I think that she's working on, but I can't remember the title, but
Okay.
it's not out yet. But so her third book of fiction, which comes out, I think April 21st,
Okay.
um, is Last Night in Brooklyn. And I read that as a arc about a month ago, and I loved it. And so all of her books I've just like loved so much. She's so cool.
Yeah.
If you ever, I haven't gotten to see her in person, but I think I've like listened to and read like everything she's ever put out. And yeah, she's just
Gotten
a
to know
really
her.
cool person. I would love to see her speak sometime. I don't know. She liked my comment, but I commented on Instagram. I was like, I need you to write like a whole dissertation on Last Night in Brooklyn because there's so many things I need to understand about this book. And she just like, liked it and then
Yeah.
didn't respond otherwise. But anyway, maybe someday Sochil and I will be besties. But
Yeah.
until
You'll
then,
have drinks in the library together.
I know. And if she Sochil, if you're out there, the invitation is open anytime.
Yes. Yeah. Well, if you had to pair a drink with this book flight to kind of stick with your show, what would you pair it with?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, what is the I'm sorry, forgive me just a second. I'm gonna look up real quick.
Yeah.
Um, because I want to make sure I get it right.
Yeah. This is why we can
What?
sidebar. It's
Yeah,
perfect.
exactly. And sometimes this is me being a host, but sometimes people will be like, "Oh, I can't remember it," and they'll just like continue on, and I'm like, "No, no, no, like pause,
Yeah.
look it up,
Get
and
your
we'll cut back
thought.
to it."
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. So I would pick something from Puerto Rico.
Okay.
As the drink to pair. I think her father is Mexican American, but her mother is Puerto Rican American, and she grew up with her Puerto Rican grandparents in Brooklyn, and that really impacts all of her stories.
Yeah.
There's a lot that, like, I mean, you cannot talk about her without talking about Puerto Rico, without talking about Brooklyn. So, like, maybe a mojito or a coquito, like
That's what
a
I was thinking.
yeah,
Coquito. Yeah.
some kind of drink to like give a nod to Puerto Rico because she loves it so much. And I mean, I love Puerto Rico too. It's obviously beautiful. And
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, so that's my book pairing for
I
her
love
books.
it.
Yeah.
Well, I am so interested to read these books. I have not read them, but I can picture the covers because they're really bright, right? Yeah,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like I can picture they're so colorful and bright that they've caught my eye for sure. Like they've stopped me. I'm like, oh, I need to pick that up. But as
Mm-hmm.
you know, fitting books into the schedule sometimes is rather challenging. But now that I always feel like this is my nudge to your like point of from the universe of, okay, you've heard about this book now. You've seen it, you've heard about it. And like after I get 2 to 3 nudges on one book, I'm like, okay, it's time to pick it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and maybe we'll go into that a little bit more. I don't know if we talk about Anita De Monte,
Yeah. Give us a little
which
background on them.
okay.
Yeah.
So I'll go into that one first because and that's her second book. But that was one that my friend Izzy, who's been on the podcast before, also in the book club, also my neighbor. I mean, like, you think I do spend a lot of time with these people, but my friend Izzy is a big reader, and she read it, and we had read Olga Dies Dreaming, and all loved it. And she was like, kept bugging me last year she was like, Gigi, have you read it? Have you read it? I was like, not yet, not yet. So I picked it up, and then I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
It was a ride, and I was thinking about this. I wish I could tell the story without telling the first part of the first chapter because I went into it totally blind, not knowing
Yeah.
what's going to happen. But in fairness, you can't tell the story without explaining that in the first chapter, Anita De Monte dies.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not spoiling. I went and checked because I wanted to make sure I didn't do your listeners a disservice by telling them that any review, if you go on Goodreads, if you
Yeah.
go like any kind of review, you find that out. But Anita De Monte dies. She falls out of a window in 1985. And so the story is told from her perspective as a ghost.
Fun. Okay.
And then it jumps forward to 1998. And our protagonist is a woman named Raquel. And similarly to our author is Puerto Rican American. I think she's at Brown University and she's studying art history. And she's studying the art history of this guy named, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
She said, so in the story, there's this famous artist named Jack Martin, and and Raquel is this young woman. She's like in her early 20s, and all of her advisor is this white guy, and he's older than her and like kind of pursuing her on the side, like kind of like icky vibes
Yeah.
from the start. And he's like, "Oh, Jack Martin, he's like this amazing artist. You need to do your thesis on him." So she starts researching it, and she finds out that Jack Martin was married to Anita De Monte, who mysteriously dies after being pushed out a window during a fight with Jack.
Mm.
And so Raquel starts just digging into the story of Anita De Monte. And also, I'm going to actually make sure your listeners know this because I was dumb and didn't realize that this was based on factual events
Okay.
until after I finished. And because I was like going on, I think I was going on about it with Izzy, who wanted me to read it. And Izzy is an art educator at
Okay.
the Virginia Museum of Fine Art. And she's like, okay, but you know, this is based on like a real artist that got pushed out the window by her husband.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so that is it's Ana Mendieta, which is crazy. So then you go down the rabbit hole of learning about her and same kind of thing. She was Cuban American, which Anita De Monte is Cuban American in the story.
Okay.
And so all based on a real
Oh,
story
now I
of a
gotta know.
woman, yeah, of a woman whose artist husband, and he was never charged. Like they went, not charged. I think they went to, he got off. They
Wow.
never convicted him in real life, but his career plummeted after that. But yeah, so Raquel starts digging into the story of Anita and like resurrects her. And yeah, it's like a very like kind of feminist story. And like there's hip hop. It's 1998. I don't know what
Yeah.
year you were born, but like I was pretty young in 1998. But like some of the stories songs she's talking about, I'm like, oh, that was a cool song that my parents wouldn't let me listen to.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Oh, that sounds awesome.
yeah, I loved that one so much. It was so much fun. Okay, so now do you want me to go into the other two?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go back. Then we'll talk about Olga Dies Dreaming. Once
Okay.
again, you can't talk about Gonzalez's work. I mean, everything is tied back to Brooklyn, one, and Puerto Rico, two. And Olga Dies Dreaming, it's set in Brooklyn in 2017, and you open, and she's a wedding planner. And also, Xochitl Gonzalez was a wedding planner previously as well. So
Okay.
there's a lot of stories that you're like, oh, she definitely pulled from experience here. And you open it, and she's a wedding planner in Brooklyn for I think a very wealthy like Cuban wedding, and her boyfriend is this rich white. I think he's a businessman, and he anyway. It's sort of like the dichotomy between her experience being first generation American and being constantly put in situations where she's a minority and like other people don't understand her. But it's a lot of fun too, and it's her mother, Blanca, is a revolutionary in Puerto Rico with a real group. It's called the Young Lords, which is sort of like a nationalist group in Puerto
Okay.
Rico. But they do a lot for the community, obviously, but they use violence a lot to um, get, make
Their
progress
cause. Yeah.
in their cause, right? And so it's a very interesting story because Olga's in the US trying to make her way. And meanwhile, her mother is writing her like all these like critical letters about how she's not doing enough for Puerto Rico. And yeah, it's just kind of an interesting story about being an immigrant or being, I guess, first generation, being Puerto Rican in a world where nothing is centered on you. And I also want to say, like, some of these stories I'm talking about, it sounds like really heavy. She writes these books and they're so much fun.
Yeah. Good.
And yeah,
I
they're
think
just
that's a
like a
great
ride.
note.
Yeah, like everybody's kind of like, there's always like a party that they're going to. And like, yeah, there's racism and there's misogyny. And like, those are really important in the story, but they're fun too. Like, I don't want anyone to think like these are like trying to like, that are going to make you, not enjoy it. Like it's
Yeah.
always a ride. Yeah. So Olga Dies Dreaming, and that came out in 2022. And so
Okay.
she has been like, sh I think any writer would love to have her journey, and she's so brilliant. I think that's part of it as well of why she's been so successful because these are the only three books that she has out right
Yeah.
now, and she's just crushed it. And I also want to talk about Last Night in Brooklyn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so I just finished it, like I said, a month or two ago. It's once again set in Brooklyn. Okay, the thing to know, it's sort of a modern day Great Gatsby retelling.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so the protagonist in that book, it's not, once again, it's a young woman, and her mother is Puerto Rican, and her mother had an affair with a very wealthy um black man, and his last name is Fortin, and he kind of like, and he's from like this very old, like established African American family. They have all this money, they go to all the right schools, and her father doesn't acknowledge her for the first couple years of her life, and then he kind of brings her in. So you kind of think about like Nick in The Great Gatsby,
Yeah.
like sort of an outsider but still has entryways to like these interesting worlds. And so she grows up going back and forth between her life with her mother and her grandparents, and then like going to, I think it's like the Hamptons or Martha's Vineyard
Okay.
with her dad's side of the family. And, she has cousins there, and she's sort of in there. She's in the group, but she's not in the group. And then she's starting off her life as like a young woman in Brooklyn, and she meets this amazing designer who's like kind of an icon at the time. And also, I need to say that this book is set in 2007,
Okay.
which is before, Last Night in Brooklyn is very much about the gentrification of Brooklyn.
Okay.
Um, they talk about, I don't know, I'm not super cool that I know everything about Brooklyn. I've been there, but
Sure.
so like they're talking about like the Barclays Center being built in Brooklyn, and I think the world that Xochitl Gonzalez grew up in was very like um Puerto Rican, or first generation Americans, and then now it's become so gentrified. Did you watch Sex in the City like
I
back in the
did.
day?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember when like Miranda like moves to Brooklyn, and it's like, oh, it's so wild and crazy.
Yeah.
And I think, I took that from that perspective, but to hear her talk about, I think that was like the beginning of the gentrification of
Sure.
Brooklyn around that time.
Yeah.
So it's all in throughout the story, they're tying together like, oh, they're going to build this Barclays Center and it's going to tear down the neighborhood. And it's so, why are they doing this? This isn't good for the real Brooklyners. And so LaGarza, the scene that they introduce LaGarza with is she's this beautiful, like mystical, local person, and they're out at night and everyone's partying and the music's like so loud. So kind of like Great Gatsby, but in
Yeah.
Brooklyn. And they have a race with shopping carts, and I couldn't imagine it because like as a 42-year-old woman, like the idea of someone pushing me in a shopping cart and like having my arms out and like
The freedom.
the freedom, but then also like, oh my gosh, is she gonna fall?
Yeah.
But that's how they open it. It's a race with the shopping carts, and you just see this like woman with this flowing dress, and she's just the coolest, and she wins the shopping cart race, and everyone's cheering. And anyhow, coming back to our protagonist's family, somehow Lagarza is interested in her very wealthy side of the family cousin.
Okay.
And so she starts to ask. So you kind of think like Daisy, going back to The Great Gatsby a little bit. And anyway, it all comes together, but it's about, yeah, the gentrification of Brooklyn, and then also LaGarza and who she is. And that's what I need Social to talk about, is just I need to know everything about LaGarza and
Yeah.
who she is. So yeah.
Well, you have opened my eyes to a whole new set of books that I'm like, I've just seen them on the shelves. I knew nothing about it, but I'm so intrigued by all of them. So I got to, if you told me today, which one should I start with?
I mean, like I said, Anita de Monte
Okay.
was like the best book I read last year.
Okay. All right. It's going
So
to the
that's,
top of my list.
yeah. But, and like I said, it has a ghost. And like I said before, if you've got a ghost in there, I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think there's a ghost in here right now.
Yeah.
So
A fun twist. Well, thank you
yeah.
so much for bringing those
Hmm.
books with you today.
Yeah.
How I love to end our show is with a speed round of questions you can answer
Okay.
really quick. Are you a
Perfect.
rereader?
I used to be. Now I have no time to do
Yep.
that.
What's one book you've read that has changed your life?
I would definitely say Bird by Bird by Anne
Yes.
Lamott.
Yeah.
Have you read that?
I haven't, but I've definitely heard of it and I've seen it.
Oh,
So, yeah.
yeah, I think,
Because
and
it's about the
I
writing craft, right?
it's about the writing craft, but it's also about creativity.
Oh,
And
okay.
I actually covered it for an episode of the podcast because I think it inspires in me some part of the reason I do the podcast. So,
Oh, I'll have to
but yeah.
pick that one up too. Where is your favorite place to read?
If I could just choose, I'd probably in bed.
Yeah.
Just like comfy. I like pull the blanket up and I just got my tea or water there next to me, and it's just me time, as a
Yeah.
mom, it's like nice to have like an hour or two cut out when I have an hour or
Yeah.
two.
A
So,
quiet
but yeah,
moment to the day.
in bed.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
lastly, what are you reading next?
Um, what am I continuing to try to get through? I have an upcoming episode where we talk about On Beauty by Zadie Smith.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's a big book. It's I should have looked it up before we started how far. I'm about halfway through.
Okay.
So yeah, I think what I'm reading next is getting through On Beauty by Sadie Smith, because she, like, just talking about like authors that are so cool.
Yeah.
She's the coolest. And I am
Yeah.
Zadie, again, if you were listening, open invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show this morning. I know your time is precious and I appreciate all you've given me.
Thank you so much. This has been a blast. I love it.
Yay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Gigi. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today with Gigi Howard, featuring her book flight of Xochitl Gonzalez's books. You can find all the books that we talked about today at bookishflights.com. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Your review not only helps the show, but it also helps the podcast to reach others. Make sure you are subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to make sure you will not miss an episode. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.